Captain Sarah Ghost. Sean pressed her palm against the quantum resonance scanner, watching the readouts cascade across her neural interface. The Defiance hummed around her, not the mechanical vibration of traditional starships, but something deeper, like the universe itself was singing. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, stars stretched into impossible geometries, as her ship existed in 17 different dimensional states simultaneously. "Captain, we're approaching the Nexus trade route," reported Lieutenant Marcus. Webb from the navigation console. His cybernetic eye flickered as it processed the quantum calculations necessary to track their position across multiple realities. Hegemony sensors show clean space ahead. Sean nodded, her scarred fingers dancing across the holographic controls. The quantum mirror drive was humanity's greatest achievement and its most dangerous secret, while the Seven-World Alliance that ruled this sector of the galaxy saw humans as barely civilized primitives who'd stumbled onto faster-than-light travel. They had no concept of what the Defiance truly was. "Maintain current phase variance," she ordered. "We'll slip through there." Checkpoint like shadows through sunlight. The bridge crew 12 humans who'd volunteered for humanity's most classified mission worked with practiced efficiency. Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the quantum field fluctuations from her science station, her enhanced neural implants directly interfacing with the ship's exotic matter containment systems. Chief Engineer Kofi Asante managed the delicate balance of keeping their vessel stable across multiple dimensional planes, while engineering specialist Yuki Tanaka tracked the temporal echoes their passage created. "Contact," announced sensor operator Jamie Rodriguez, their voice tight with concern. "Hegemony patrol vessel, Righteous Fury, dead ahead. They're not detecting us on any conventional sensors." Chun smiled grimly. The Hegemony's technology was sophisticated, but fundamentally limited by their linear thinking. They couldn't detect what existed in 17 dimensions when their sensors only operated in 3 as they approached the checkpoint. Chun watched the Hegemony patrol ship through her enhanced perception. The vessel was elegant in the way all Hegemony craft were crystalline structures that seemed grown rather than built, bristling with weapons that could atomize a planet. The crew aboard would be a mix of the 7 allied species, tall, ethereal. Corvani with their translucent skin and telepathic abilities. Muscular Draxi, whose exoskeletons gleamed with bioluminescent patterns. Graceful Villari, whose forearms moved in hypnotic coordination. "Passing through their sensor grid now," Webb reported. "No response. They can't even perceive us, but something went wrong." As the Defiance phased through the checkpoint's quantum, barriers designed to be absolutely impenetrable, the ship's multiple dimensional states created an unexpected resonance. The Hegemony's impossible-to-breach security grid, built on principles of dimensional anchoring, suddenly registered what felt like a massive invasion fleet materializing from nowhere. Alarms shrieked across the Hegemony patrol ship. Emergency. Broadcasts flooded subspace communications as the checkpoint's AI interpreted the quantum signatures as hundreds of hostile vessels, simultaneously breaching their most secure barrier. The readings made no sense. Ships that existed and didn't exist, weapons signatures that defied physics, energy patterns that suggested technology beyond anything in their databases. "Ghost, we have a problem," Dr. Vasquez called out, her voice strained. "The resonance cascade is amplifying. Their security grid is feeding back into our quantum field. I'm reading massive spatial distortions spreading outward from our position." Chun felt the ship shudder around her, not physically, but across the dimensional planes. The Defiance was like a stone thrown into a perfectly still pond, and the ripples were spreading faster than light itself. "Emergency protocols," she ordered. "Prepare for dimensional stabilization." But it was too late. Across the galaxy, the most sophisticated military commanders of the Hegemony were already analyzing the impossible data streaming from the Nexus checkpoint. What they saw suggested humanity had not only developed faster than light travel, but had somehow created technology that could breach their most fundamental defenses. The decision was unanimous among the High Command. Humanity had revealed itself as an existential threat that required immediate and overwhelming response. Task Force Extinction was already mobilizing. Asterisk. Admiral Zaxhai Corvith stood 8 feet tall in the command center of the Hegemony flagship. Divine retribution, her translucent skin pulsing with the bioluminescent patterns that indicated deep thought among her people. Through her telepathic senses, she could feel the anxiety radiating from the mixed species command staff surrounding her. The holographic display before them showed the impossible readings from the Nexus checkpoint quantum signatures that defied every known law of physics. "Analysis complete, Admiral," reported Commander Vecdraxi, his exoskeleton's warning patterns flickering orange and red. The human vessel somehow existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. "Our security." Grid registered it as a fleet of over 300 ships. Corvith's 4-chambered heart beat faster as she processed the implications. The Hegemony had ruled this sector for 12,000 years, precisely because their technology was absolute. Their dimensional anchoring systems made their barriers truly impenetrable. Their weapons could reach across space-time itself. Yet somehow, these primitive humans had developed technology that made a mockery of physical law. "Bring up the tactical analysis," she commanded, her mental voice carrying across the bridge's psionic network. The hologram shifted to show the Defiance, a sleek, predatory vessel that seemed to shift and blur, even in the recorded images. "General." Veltar, the 4-armed Velari, who served as her tactical coordinator, gestured with 2 hands while the other 2 manipulated control interfaces. "Intelligence suggests this is their prototype vessel," Veltar reported, her melodious voice carrying undertones of unease. "If they've equipped a single ship with technology this advanced, we must assume their entire fleet will soon possess similar capabilities." Around the command center, representatives from all 7 member worlds of the Hegemony processed this information through their species' unique perspectives. The crystalline psi fin communicated through harmonic resonances that made the air itself sing with their concern. The shape-shifting Nadari rippled through various forms as they considered tactical implications. The cybernetic Mektai calculated probability matrices with mechanical precision. "The humans must be eliminated," declared War Prince Keth of the militant Gorhai, his scaled hide darkening to battle black. "Not just this ship, their entire species. They've demonstrated technology that threatens the natural order." Admiral Corvith felt the weight of decision pressing down on her. In 12 millennia of Hegemony rule, no species had ever developed technology that could challenge their supremacy. They had maintained peace through absolute technological superiority, making rebellion not just impossible, but literally unthinkable. Task Force Extinction will deploy with full authorization, she announced. 312 vessels, including our 5 most advanced dreadnoughts. We will make an example that will echo across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, Captain Shun was discovering the true scope of the crisis they'd accidentally triggered. Dr. Vasquez worked frantically at her science station, her neural implants overheating as she tried to process the quantum data streaming through their sensors. "Sarah, the resonance cascade isn't stopping," Elena reported, sweat beading on her forehead. "Every FTL-capable ship within 50 light-years is detecting quantum echoes of our passage. The Hegemony's communication networks are lighting up like a Christmas tree." Chief Engineer Asante's deep voice cut through the bridge chatter. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple vectors, closing fast." On the main display, space itself seemed to tear open as the largest military fleet in galactic history emerged from faster than light. Travel. The divine retribution led the formation, a crystalline spear of destruction, 15 kilometers long, surrounded by hundreds of smaller, but equally deadly vessels. Each ship represented the pinnacle of military technology from 7 different civilizations. Lieutenant Webb's voice was barely a whisper. "Ma'am, I'm counting 312 hostile contacts. Energy signatures suggest Planet Killer-class weapons on at least a dozen vessels." Chun felt the weight of unintended consequences settling on her shoulders. They'd been trying to slip past a routine checkpoint, and instead had provoked the largest military response in galactic history. The irony wasn't lost on her. The hegemony was preparing to use an entire fleet to destroy what they perceived as a threat, not understanding that their massive show of force was about to trigger something far worse than anything humanity could have intentionally devised. "All stations, prepare for evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "And someone get me a quantum field analysis. I need to know exactly what happens when that many weapons fire simultaneously in the presence of our mirror drive." Dr. Vasquez's face went pale as the calculations completed. Sarah ... If they open fire while we're maintaining quantum coherence across multiple dimensions, the cascade effect would be exponential, Chun finished grimly. Every shot they fire would exist in every dimensional state we occupy. Outside, Task Force Extinction completed its deployment, weapons charging, targeting systems locked onto. The single human vessel that had dared to challenge the natural order of the galaxy. Neither side yet understood that they stood on the precipice of a disaster that would reshape civilization itself. Part 3. The mirror breaks. The moment of truth. Arrived with the brutal efficiency that defined hegemony military doctrine. Admiral Corvith's mental command rippled across the psionic network linking Task Force Extinction. All vessels, open fire, vaporize the target. 312 ships unleashed hell simultaneously. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids. Quantum disruptors that unraveled matter at the subatomic level. Temporal weapons that age targets to dust in milliseconds. Every advancement in destructive technology, developed by 7 civilizations over 12,000 years, focused on the defiance. Captain, Chun felt the universe hold its breath. Dimensional. Cascade event initiated, Dr. Vasquez announced, her voice steady despite the terror in her eyes. The quantum field is resonating with their weapons discharge. Sarah, every shot they're firing is being mirrored across all 17-dimensional states we occupy. On the main display, reality began to fracture. The space around the Defiance filled with impossible geometries as the ship's quantum mirror drive responded to the massive energy input. Each weapon blast created a reflection that created another reflection, an infinite regression of destructive force that started small but grew exponentially with each iteration. Reading temporal anomalies, reported sensor operator Rodriguez, their hands shaking as they tried to interpret data that defied comprehension. The weapons fire is creating ... echoes, past and future versions of the same attacks, all happening simultaneously. Lieutenant Webb's cybernetic eye sparked as it overloaded, trying to track their position. Captain, we're no longer moving through space. We're moving through possibilities. I'm reading our position as everywhere and nowhere. The hegemony. Fleet found itself trapped in a nightmare of their own making. Admiral Corvith watched in horror as her perfectly coordinated attack began to splinter across multiple realities. On her tactical display, the Defiance appeared as 17 different targets, each one slightly out of phase with the others, each one existing in a different dimensional state. Report, she commanded, but the responses from her fleet commanders made no sense. Admiral, our weapons are hitting the target, but it's still there, reported Captain Velinari of the destroyer Swift Justice. Confirmed destruction, but sensors show no debris. Divine retribution to flagship, came another transmission. We're receiving our own weapons fire from an unknown source. Shields holding, but the energy signatures match our own plasma cannons exactly. Commander Thek's exoskeleton had shifted to deep purple, the color of Draxi confusion and fear. Admiral, I'm reading multiple copies of our own fleet on sensors. They appear to be firing on us, but they're us. The cascade effect was accelerating, beyond anyone's ability to comprehend or control. Each weapon fired created a mirror image in another dimension. Those mirror weapons fired at mirror targets, creating more mirrors, more dimensions, more possibilities. The neat, linear reality that the hegemony had built their civilization upon was collapsing into an infinite maze of parallel battles. Aboard the Defiance, Chief Engineer Asantai fought to keep their exotic matter containment system stable as the ship existed in an ever-increasing number of dimensional states. Captain, we're losing coherence. The mirror drive is trying to maintain quantum entanglement across too many realities simultaneously. How many dimensions are we spanning? Now? Chun demanded. Dr. Vasquez's neural implants were glowing cherry red from the processing load. 237, and climbing exponentially. Each new mirror reality creates the potential for more mirrors. It's a geometric progression with no upper limit. Engineering specialist Tanaka called out from her station. The temporal echoes are overlapping. I'm detecting weapons fire from battles that happened in the past and battles that might happen in the future, all converging on our present position. On the tactical display, the space around them had become a kaleidoscope of destruction. Hegemony ships fired at targets that weren't there, hit by weapons that didn't exist, destroyed by enemies that were themselves. The divine retribution appeared. Dozens of times on sensors, each instance slightly different, some with battle damage, some pristine, some that looked like they were from entirely different timelines. Captain, Chun realized with growing horror that they had become the center of an ever-expanding dimensional storm. Every second that passed, every energy discharge from the hegemony fleet created new realities. It created new possibilities for conflict. The battle was becoming self-sustaining, feeding on its own existence. Sarah, Dr. Vasquez said quietly, I'm running projections on the cascade expansion. If this continues at current rate, the dimensional disturbance will encompass the entire sector within 6 hours. Every star system, every planet, every living being will exist in multiple realities simultaneously. And if we shut down the mirror drive, Alana's pause was answer enough. All the mirror dimensions collapse simultaneously. Every version of every ship, every weapon, every explosion, they all try to occupy the same space at the same time. Chun felt the weight of an impossible choice settling on her shoulders. Continue the cascade and watch reality itself unravel across hundreds of star systems, or collapse it and create an implosion that would make faster-than-light travel impossible. For centuries, stranding entire civilizations and dooming the hegemony to inevitable fragmentation. Around them, the battle raged across an infinite number of realities, each one slightly different, all of them equally real, all of them contributing to a disaster that grew worse with every passing moment. The hegemony had deployed a fleet to destroy one human ship. They were about to discover that sometimes overwhelming force creates overwhelming consequences. Time became meaningless in the dimensional storm. Captain Chun existed in 463 different realities simultaneously, watching versions of herself make the same impossible choice again and again. In some timelines, her hair was longer. In others, Lieutenant Webb had different cybernetic implants. In one particularly disturbing mirror, half her crew was dead from a battle that hadn't happened yet. Captain, Dr. Vasquez called across the bridge, her voice echoing from multiple dimensions. I'm in contact with 17 different versions of myself. We're sharing data across realities. The cascade isn't just expanding, it's accelerating. We're at 612-dimensional states, and the growth rate is exponential. Through the viewport, space had become a maze of impossible physics. Hegemony ships existed in temporal loops, firing weapons at enemies that were themselves from different timelines. Admiral Corvith's flagship appeared as a crystalline constellation, each copy slightly out of phase, some showing battle damage that hadn't occurred yet, others pristine despite being under constant attack. Chief Engineer Asante's report carried the weight of technological impossibility. The exotic matter containment is holding, but barely. We're channeling energy from 600 different dimensional states through systems designed for one. If we lose containment, the Defiance becomes a quantum black hole, Shun finished, taking every version of this battle with us. The irony was becoming clear with brutal precision. The hegemony's overwhelming response, 312 ships to destroy one, had created exactly the kind of existential threat they'd been trying to prevent. Their own military might was now trapped in an infinite loop of parallel battles, each one feeding the cascade that would eventually consume entire star systems. Lieutenant Webb's cybernetic eye flickered as it processed navigation data from hundreds of realities. Ma'am, I'm tracking the expansion pattern. The dimensional disturbance has reached the outer planets of this system. Early estimates suggest it will encompass the core hegemony worlds within 72 hours. On the main display, they could see the expanding wave of quantum distortion. Planets existed in multiple states, some inhabited, some barren, some that had never formed at all. The fundamental nature of reality was breaking down under the weight of many possibilities existing simultaneously. A transmission crackled through the dimensional static. Admiral Corvith's voice, strained and desperate, reached them across the quantum maze. Human vessel, this is Admiral Corvith of the Hegemony Fleet. We request immediate ceasefire and negotiation. Chun almost laughed at the absurdity. Patch me through. Admiral Corvith, this is Captain Shun. I'm afraid ceasefire isn't really an option anymore. Your fleet is trapped in a dimensional cascade that's feeding on its own weapons fire. Every shot you've already fired is still firing in parallel realities. Our tactical analysis. Corvith's mental voice carried notes of species-deep panic. Our xenopsychologists never predicted technology like this. We assumed human development followed linear progression. We prepared for conventional warfare. You prepared to swat a fly with a sledgehammer, Chun replied grimly. The problem is, you hit something that turned your sledgehammer into 600 sledgehammers, all swinging at once. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her calculations, her face pale. Sarah, I've been analyzing the collapse scenarios. If we shut down the mirror drive, the dimensional implosion will create a space-time scar approximately 12 light-years in diameter. Faster-than-light travel will be impossible in this region for at least 3 centuries. The implications hit Chun like a physical blow. The hegemony's power structure was built entirely on their ability to maintain faster-than-light communication and transportation between their member worlds. Cut off from each other, the alliance would fragment within decades. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds would be stranded, cut off from trade, communication, and mutual defense. And if we don't shut it down, the cascade reaches critical mass in approximately 18 hours. At that point, the dimensional disturbance becomes self-sustaining and begins expanding at significant fractions of light speed. Conservative estimates suggest it could encompass the entire galactic arm within 50 years. Engineering specialist Tanaka's voice carried a note of desperate hope. Captain, there might be a third option. If we can synchronize the mirror drive, shut down with a precise gravitational pulse, we might be able to create a controlled collapse. Instead of an implosion, we channel the dimensional energy into a stable wormhole. What would that accomplish? It would maintain the FDL dead zone, but create a single point of passage. The hegemony could maintain limited contact between their worlds, but their military projection capability would be permanently reduced to a fraction of current levels. Chun stared at the tactical display showing the expanding dimensional storm. In the mirror realities, she could see versions of herself making different choices. In some, she chose to sacrifice herself and her crew to prevent galactic catastrophe. In others, she gambled on technological solutions that might save everyone or doom them all. Admiral Corvith's voice crackled through the quantum static again. Captain Chun, our analysts have reached the same conclusions as your Dr. Vasquez. The High Command authorizes me to negotiate any terms necessary to prevent sector-wide catastrophe. The decision isn't yours anymore, Admiral. It's mine. And I have to choose between saving your civilization at the cost of crippling it, or letting reality itself unravel to avoid that choice. Around them, the dimensional storm continued to expand, carrying parallel versions of this conversation across hundreds of realities, each one ending with the same impossible decision, weighing on the shoulders of a human captain who had never wanted to be responsible for the fate of civilizations. Captain Chun stood at the center of the storm she'd never meant to create, watching 743 versions of reality play out simultaneously on her bridge displays. In some dimensions, her crew was already dead. In others, the hegemony fleet had been completely destroyed. In a few, impossibly, both sides had found ways to coexist peacefully. But in all of them, the choice remained the same: save one civilization by crippling it, or risk the collapse of reality itself. Synchronization matrix is ready, engineering specialist Tanaka reported, her fingers dancing across holographic controls that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. If we're going to attempt the controlled collapse, we need to initiate within the next 17 minutes. After that, the cascade becomes too complex to channel. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her science station, where she'd been coordinating with alternate versions of herself across realities. Sarah, I've been running probability calculations with my other selves. The controlled collapse has a 67% chance of success. Failure means we create an unstable wormhole that could tear space-time apart. And the alternative? Dimensional cascade reaches critical mass in 14 hours and 23 minutes. After that, Elena gestured helplessly at the tactical display. Reality becomes negotiable across half the galaxy. Admiral Corvith's voice reached them through the quantum static, carrying the harmonics of desperation that transcended species. Captain Chun, our long-range sensors show the cascade. Effect has reached the outer colonies of 3 member worlds. We're detecting temporal paradoxes, causality loops, and quantum indeterminacy on a planetary scale. Billions of beings are experiencing simultaneous existence across multiple realities. Chun closed her eyes, feeling the weight of unintended consequences pressing down on her. They'd started this journey trying to slip past a routine checkpoint. Now she held the fate of galactic civilization in her hands. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's communication system. We're about to attempt something that's never been tried before. We're going to collapse 700 dimensional states into a single stable wormhole. If we succeed, we prevent galactic catastrophe, but create a permanent change to the structure of space-time in this region. If we fail, we die saving everyone, Lieutenant Webb finished quietly, his cybernetic eye flickering as it processed the navigation calculations for a journey no one had ever attempted. Helm, bring us to the exact center of the cascade epicenter, Chun ordered. Engineering, prepare for mirror drive shutdown on my command. Science, monitor the gravitational pulse generator. If the synchronization is off by even microseconds, this whole plan becomes a suicide run. The Defiance moved through. the dimensional storm toward the eye of the hurricane they'd created. Around them, parallel versions of the hegemony fleet continued their eternal battle, trapped in temporal loops where cause and effect had become meaningless. Some ships fired weapons that had already destroyed them. Others fled from battles that wouldn't happen for hours. Chief Engineer? Asante's voice carried the weight of engineering precision, exotic matter containment at critical levels. We're channeling power from 743 different dimensional states. The systems were never designed for this kind of load. Will they hold long enough? If the ancestors smile on us, yes. If not, Kofi shrugged with characteristic stoicism. We become the most spectacular explosion in galactic history. Dr. Vasquez began the final countdown. Gravitational pulse generator charging. Quantum field harmonics aligning across all dimensional states. Sarah, once we start this process, there's no stopping it. We either succeed completely or fail catastrophically. Admiral Corvith, Chon called across the quantum link. You might want to pull your fleet back to minimum safe distance. What we're about to attempt is going to release energy equivalent to a supernova collapse channeled through dimensional space. Captain, Corvith replied, whatever the outcome, the hegemony acknowledges that this crisis was precipitated by our disproportionate response. If you succeed in preventing galactic catastrophe, we pledge to reevaluate our policies regarding emerging civilizations. Hold that thought, Admiral. We're not done yet. The countdown reached its final moments. On the tactical display, Chun could see the precise moment when 743 realities would collapse into one. The mathematics were beautiful and terrifying, a cascade protocol that would either save civilization or destroy it. 3.2.1. Execute. The universe screamed. 743 dimensional states collapsed simultaneously, their combined energy channeled through the Defiance's quantum mirror drive into a single point of spacetime. The gravitational pulse generator fired at precisely the calculated moment, creating a controlled singularity that absorbed the dimensional cascade's energy and stabilized it into a permanent wormhole. Spacetime rewrote itself around them. The infinite maze of parallel battles collapsed into a single reality where the hegemony fleet hung motionless in space, their weapons systems overloaded by feedback from dimensions that no longer existed. The Defiance sat at the center of a perfectly spherical zone of twisted space, a permanent scar in reality that would make faster-than-light travel impossible for 3 centuries, except for the single stable wormhole that pulsed with barely contained energy, offering passage to one ship at a time. Status report. Chun called weakly, feeling like she'd been turned inside out and reassembled. All systems stable, Asante reported with evident surprise. The exotic matter containment held. We're back to existing in a single dimension. Admiral Corvith, this is Captain Chun. The cascade has been successfully collapsed. You now have a 12 light-year FTL dead zone with a single point of passage. Your civilization survives, but your ability to project military force has been permanently reduced. The response carried harmonics of profound relief and acceptance. Understood, Captain. The High Command has already begun discussions about restructuring the hegemony as a confederation rather than a military alliance. Perhaps this outcome was necessary. Chun looked around her bridge at the crew who had helped her navigate. The most dangerous 18 hours in galactic history. They'd started as explorers, pushing the boundaries of human technology. They'd ended as accidental architects of a new balance of power that would shape civilization for centuries. Helm, set course for Earth, she ordered. I think humanity needs to know what we've learned about the consequences of overwhelming force.